Guys, my name is Sean. I'm the founder of 7 Sages. Welcome to this video. I'm going to give you a free workshop on how to make soaps. So there's going to be two types of people watching the show, and one would be someone who's just interested to know how soaps are made and to be entertained. And some of you may be interested to try your own, so we welcome you to try making your own soap. However, I'm going to go into details, the science behind the soap making process and the formulation and the ingredients. You must practice safety. You must understand the basic concept of soap making, the safety precautions that we need to take, and as well as the formulation. You cannot have the wrong formulation or you burn people's skin. So soap making is fun and it's actually very relaxing, but at the same time, it can be dangerous. That's why you really need to be aware. So I'm gonna give you a lot of disclaimer here. Be careful, don't mess around. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'll take you to the classroom. I'll draw you some of the diagrams because it's more visual that way. You can learn a little bit more about the ingredients. However, if you do wanna just go ahead and watch the processes, go ahead and fast forward the video and go right to the process. So I will see you later in a bit. Okay, so the first thing you need to know is that lye can react with oil in a process called saponification that will give you your bar soap. And lye, you can get it in a pure form anywhere in the world. And oil, you basically have to choose between your animal fats or your vegetable fats. You can use a cow lard or beef tallows, or you can also use your coconut oil and olive oil, and the list of oils that you can use is insane. And all of the oils actually produce a different kinds of soaping properties and different nutrition for your skin. But the next thing that we're going to talk about is that lye, or sodium hydroxide, is very, very corrosive. It can burn your skin and it will kill somebody if they ingest it. So you have to be very, very careful when you're dealing with lye. Just make sure you don't joke around with it. You clean it off the countertop if you see any dripping on it. You don't touch it with your bare hands. And you don't use your cooking utensils for your soap making. And next we're going to talk about the saponification value. And here's an example. For example, 1 gram of lye will saponify 5.236 grams of coconut oil. That's a very simple calculation. What happens here when you mix 1 gram of lye, but you have less coconut oil than it can saponify, you're going to end up with a formula that has soap as a final product, but you also have the lye in your final product, and this will burn the skin. So never ever add too little oil to your sodium hydroxide. Conversely, when you add lye to a high amount of oil than it can saponify, you actually get soap, and at the end you get 1 gram of that extra coconut oil that is not saponified. And this process is called superfatting, when you deliberately leave excess oil that is not saponified. And this is actually very good for your skin. It's very beneficial. So I recommend for your formulation to always have some kind of superfat in your soap. Although if you add too much of it, your soap may end up being mushy and too soft. So we'll get into the oils much later on, but this is just sort of the basic formula, and that's all you need to know. This is actually super simple formula. And next, we're going to talk about the processes of making soap. The most commonly used method is the cold process. It's used in probably about 95% of all soap making. And it's basically when you mix the lye and this oil and you get a liquid soap batter, and then you just kind of add your coloring, add your fragrance, and then whether you want to swirl it or you want to add designs, you can put it in a mold. But keep in mind that the saponification process in this, which means the chemical reaction, takes 5 to 6 weeks to complete. This means that if you use this soap within 1 week of your production, you're going to have in there your soap and your unreacted lye that's going to be in your soap bar if you use it too early. So yeah, you really have to obey the rules here and wait 5 to 6 weeks. It's going to produce a soap with a more smooth finish because you're going to be pouring a very liquidy type soap batter into your molds, and it will allow different really cool designs. However, keep in mind when you do cold process and you add essential oils instead of fragrance oils, the lye will saponify the essential oils. That means that the benefits from the essential oils as well as the scent will be gone. So I don't recommend the use of essential oil in cold process. That's a really wasteful practice. You're wasting a lot of the precious plant materials that we are in limited supply of. So next we're going to do the hot process, which is what we at Seven Sages use. And in this method, actually, sodium hydroxide or lye and oil is cooked in a slow cooker until it reached a mashed potato consistency. Then it's not going to be liquid anymore. However, with this process, the saponification is complete right away. You can use the soap immediately. Although I do wait a week for it to completely harden before I pack it or use it. And it's going to produce a soap bar that's not manageable in terms of like how smooth you want it to look, because it's going to be rough. Think about like scooping a mashed potato into a mold. Like you can't make it look amazing, right? And it's got very limited designs when you use hot process. And the benefit is that we can finish the saponification, and then finally we can add the essential oils before they harden. This means that the essential oil is going to be fresh and it's going to retain all of its benefits. Welcome back. So I hope that was useful. Today the soap that we're going to make is the Memphis, and it's going to be made with lemongrass, rosemary, cedarwood, essential oils, as well as turmeric and dried sage as a topping and coloring. So we at Seven Sages, we use only natural ingredients. However, if you opt to use fragrance oil, synthetic fragrance, or artificial coloring, you can go ahead and substitute any of the ingredients with that. But the basics of the soap making is going to be relatively the same. And the first order of business is to always have gloves on in the beginning of the soap making process when we're dealing with lye. Normally I take off the gloves afterwards because there's no more lye in the solution, and it's pretty safe to handle from then on, because gloves can be a nuisance when you're trying to stir and you're trying to scoop batter and you're trying to even out the soap within the mold. So yeah. And then after you have your gloves, the next thing you need to do is put on your safety goggles. Remember, if lye gets into your eyes, you're done. You'll go blind. Like nothing, no doctor in the world can save you. So keep in mind, glasses are important. If you feel lazy and you don't want to wear gloves, that's fine. You'll burn your skin, but you can rinse it off as soon as you get a splash on it or whatever, and it'll sting for a few days, but you can recover. But your eyes, you've only got one pair of those, so be careful. So we're gonna go right ahead and start mixing the ingredients. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is prepare your sodium hydroxide. And again, this is very dangerous to deal with, so you want to make sure that it's not in contact with your skin. And what I like to do first is actually give it a good shake, because sometimes the sodium hydroxide would clump into clumps, and you don't want clumps when you're pouring that into your beaker here. So what I want to measure here is, so I use an electric scale, just so you know, it's the most accurate way to measure weight. We always measure all our things based on weight, not volume. And next thing you want to do is measure out your water. And I use distilled water, and it has to be cold. Do not use room temperature water because it'll volcano up. Because when you put the lye in the water, the water's gonna get hot really fast. That's why when you use cold water, it's gonna turn hot. And if you use a warm or room temperature water, it might explode. I don't know, I haven't tried, but yeah. All right, that's perfect. And actually, the next thing to do is to mix the lye into the water, into the cold water. And you really want to stand back, and you want to do this in a well-ventilated area where possible. But it's not safe to do it in a tiny room where there's no circulation, because this will start to steam up, and the steam is actually sodium hydroxide. So you don't want to breathe that in. You don't want that to get into your eyes or your skin. It'll burn. So I want to take a step back and slowly mix that in. Nice and slow. And you never pour water into lye. You always pour lye into water. Remember that. I don't know the consequences if you do it the other way around, but I've been warned by every soap maker out there to never do that. So now I'm telling you. You should get all of it. And yeah, I can see a little bit of the vapor coming out, and I just want to stay away from it where possible. I normally leave like a fan on so that I can get this to cool down as fast as possible, as soon as possible. So, but meanwhile, this is just gonna be dissolving. I give it probably about 15 to 20 minutes before it's ready to be mixed with the oil. But while we have that done, meanwhile, I will go ahead and prepare the oils. I also did notice that there is some spillage of the sodium hydroxide here. Do not leave that on the counter. You may accidentally touch it and it'll burn you. So ideally, you would you can get like a vinegar and just pour some vinegar on a paper towel and just kind of wipe it down, because vinegar will neutralize the sodium hydroxide. But in my case, because I've got two cameras going and I've got a microphone on, yeah, I'm just gonna use water to do that. I'll give this countertop a thorough cleaning later at the end of the workshop. Next, we're gonna prepare the coconut oil. And I may have to measure this 3 times because I don't have the right size beaker that will fit all of the oil in one go. So I will do this 3 times. And actually, when you do your when you pour your first oil, because the container is new, you're gonna need to add, I would say, about 10 grams of extra oil in the first pour. Let me tell you why. You want to pour it carefully here. Make sure that you get almost every last drop that you can. And the reason why we added 10 grams in there is because when you're done pouring all the oils, there's actually a lot of oils left in here that weighs probably around somewhere between 7 to 10 grams. That's why you want to add a little more. And this oil, it can't pour out anymore. It's just wasted oil in there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up 2 more pours. So remember that we do have to turn this on. I've had experience where I didn't even turn this on, and I just wondered why it didn't get hot. So make sure that you have this turned on. And the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna wait for this oil to heat up, and you're waiting for the sodium hydroxide to cool down. So they're gonna meet somewhere in the middle, and it can be anywhere. In my experience, it doesn't affect the soap at all. But the way that I measure the temperature is by this temperature reader. So I give them probably around like between 5 to 10 degrees Celsius in difference before I pour this in. All right, so it's been about 10 to 15 minutes, and I can see that this is getting warmer, and this is very close. It's actually only 4 degrees Celsius apart. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this one last stir. And do not put the spoon on the table. There's sodium hydroxide on this spoon, so keep it at the sink. And then just kind of pour it in slowly. For this soap variant, I'm actually going to use a little bit of turmeric. This gives it that color, and also turmeric is quite beneficial on the skin as well. And just put the hand blender in the slow cooker. Kind of tap it a little bit to get the bubbles out, because you don't want the bubbles to splash out all over you later. And then you just go slowly give it a whirl, and then blend away. And I'll let you know when we stop. So we're gonna keep blending this. It's different every time, so there's no specific time that I can give you. So we're just gonna blend it till it's thick consistency, where it actually doesn't lay flat anymore. It piles up on each other. I'll show you later in a bit. And just so you know, actually when you put coloring into the soap, what you see right now is not going to be the same as the final. And I know that for turmeric, it's going to lighten up. So when this is done, it turns into a bar soap. It's going to be a sort of a translucent yellow, like a light yellow, not this orange. All right, I believe we are done. So it's gonna look a little bit thick, and what happens is that when you drop the soap batter on top of the pile, it's just gonna pile up. It's gonna be like a mountain. So it won't look like it won't lay flat. And when you're done with this, you just kind of cover it and wait for it to cook. It takes somewhere from 20 to 40 minutes. Again, it's different every time. I don't know the factors that determines how long it takes. So you just want to be on top of it. You don't want to go wash your car, walk your dog, and forget about it because it's going to volcano up, it's going to overcook. So just stick around here, and we're going to be preparing the other ingredients while we wait. So the next thing you want to do is turn this into this. I'm just going to cut this in half. So this is basically for our decoration purposes only. We don't really, it doesn't really provide any added benefits on the soap except that it makes it look cute. Yeah. And actually, if you look over here in this pot, it's already looking like it's ready soon. The middle part is going to be solid, and then the liquid part is going to start rising from below. And slowly it'll engulf the whole pot. And when it's completely in a mushy liquid form, that's when you know it's done. So this is gonna be done almost any minute now. I'm gonna go ahead and continue cutting these lemons up. All right, so this is pretty much done. As you can see, it's like a mushy consistency. So I'm gonna take this out of the pot and I'm gonna start stirring it. So this is cooked and I'm ready to let it cool down a bit. So it's actually very hot right now, and I'm gonna use a spatula. This is meant for baking actually. And I'm gonna use this to stir the pot here. And you don't wanna put your essential oil in right now, because if you put it in here now, let me take the temperature. It's 86 degrees Celsius. If you put your essential oil in right now, it's gonna smell super nice in here very quickly, but then the oil is going to evaporate basically, so you guys won't be able to enjoy the benefits of the essential oil. So I'm going to let this cool down to probably about like 65 degrees Celsius before I can add the oils. And while this is still piping hot, I'm actually going to start adding my dried sage. I kind of just eyeball this because when I stir it, I can tell if there's enough in there or not. So it takes a bit of experience. And the dried sage is gonna start cooking a little bit, which is very nice. It smells really amazing in here. And it adds a very decorative element into the soap. So we have to be patient. This takes a while to stir. It could take somewhere between 20 to 30 minutes of stirring. It's actually it cools down a lot faster if I could have the fan on. I usually have a massive fan that's right on here. Yeah, and it'll cool down faster. But again, if I turn that on, you won't be able to hear me talk. So I'm gonna take my time with this and let it cool down very slowly. And I'm gonna just stir it. And as you stir, you realize that the liquid will get thicker and thicker in consistency until it becomes like a real mashed potato type consistency. So this is what it looks like when it's getting thicker, but it's still pretty hot. So I'm gonna stir it for a while more, but if you keep folding the soap batter over, you'll see the glycerin here, and that's something that is actually very beneficial for your skin. It's natural humectant, so it's very moisturizing. I love staring at it. And when I make it, I like to just imagine all the good skin benefits I'm gonna give to you guys. It's very, very therapeutic. I highly recommend for you guys to give it a try. Kind of whether you make it for yourself or for your loved ones. All right, next we're gonna use the essential oils. We actually use the Happy Green brand here in Indonesia, and it's a very reputable supplier for essential oil, and it's available for retail too. We are not sponsored by them for any reason. I just found that their quality is very reliable. So we're gonna go ahead and measure out our essential oils. And again, you can substitute it for any oil that you want, any blend that you feel like that suits your personal needs better. We do use a lot of essential oil, just so you know. This is rosemary. You have to really focus so you don't miscalculate. Yeah, let me try to think. So this is lemongrass. And finally we have the cedarwood. Alright. It smells amazing in here. So this is our signature scent. Again, it's a mix of lemongrass, rosemary, and cedarwood. I really welcome you guys to try your own blends because those are fun. I mean, all essential oils have their own benefits. So again, you want to tailor it based on what you want, what you need, or what your clients want. Yeah, this is still at 93 and it's been 10 minutes. I don't want to be here forever, so I'm gonna turn on the fan, turn off the video, and I'll come back to you when this reaches like a 65 or 70 degrees. Keep in mind, it's better to just slowly mix them once in a while, because if you just leave it alone to cool down, only the top part is gonna cool down, but the bottom is gonna be molten lava hot. So you really wanna periodically kind of fold it around, like in both pots. Just toss them around with the fan on. So yeah, with the when you have the fan on, it's gonna take like probably 5 to 6 times faster than now. See ya. So here's a tip that I forgot to tell you guys. When you guys are cooling the soap down, if you don't stir it well, it's gonna read pretty cool surface temperature, but when you fold it underneath, oh, that sounds amazing. Sloshy. And that shiny glycerin in there is nice to look at. Okay, when you stir it, look at that. It's like 10 degrees hotter in there. So you gotta keep stirring, and when you're figuring your final temperature, do give it a stir before you decide that that's the temperature you want to be on. But for our sake, 65 to 70 degrees is the good temperature to be in. Okay, so I've reached my desired temperature, and what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna pour in the essential oils. Look at that. This room smells so nice immediately. And you want to carefully stir it around. Make sure you don't slosh the essential oil around, because I've had spillage before where the essential just spill out of the bowl, and you don't want that to happen. So I'm going to give this a good mix for another minute or so before I mold it up. Okay, so that's blended in really beautifully. Now I'm ready to mold it up, and I'm just going to do it like this. I wish I had a cameraman, but I don't. So you're gonna deal with some tripod footage. I'm sorry. But it's such a beautiful process to watch. Like, I love scooping the batter into the soap mold. Okay, when you have this already, what you want to do next is you want to tap it out. This is to get any air bubbles out of there. Yeah. So I'm gonna keep working. So I'm gonna keep scooping up the next scoop. This is actually a little bit too much. I'm gonna take a little bit off. So this, I believe, is for baking purposes too. Alright, so that's beautiful. And I like to keep my top a little bit rough. I don't like it to be too perfect. Just my design. So if you want to flatten up the top, it's up to you. But for me, I like this sort of like gem-like, crystal-like, I don't know what, like, looks like a cake, basically. And actually in my soap mold, I've prepared lines beforehand. I don't know if you can see this. This tells me where to cut each bar soap. And from there, I know where to put my lemons. For example, like I want to put it in between the lines. Like so. It takes experience to know how to do this. I've made so many of these batches that it's just very easy for me, but the first few times is definitely a real struggle. So that's too small. I'm gonna chuck that away. Okay, this is much better. All right, and you have, ta-da, it's done. I'm gonna wait a few hours for this to harden, and I'm gonna take it out and I'm gonna cut it. So I'll show you how I do that. Okay, so it's about 4 hours later and the soap has hardened. You can wait longer, but I prefer to work on them when they're still, when they're not rock hard, because if you can still mold them into shape and bend them into shape after you cut them at this stage. So I'm going to take it out of the wooden box and take it out of the silicone mold. Beautiful. So first thing first, we're going to make a cut at the edge. Just a scrap that we don't, we're gonna keep it for sample or personal use. I'm gonna back here. So here are our cuts. Look how beautiful. Nice. Alright, so I've cut up one of the loaves for you. I've got 3 more. I'll work on those later after this video. I want to thank you for your time, for watching this video. I hope this inspires you guys to try your hand at soap making. There are actually a lot of ingredients that you can work with and play with. Just make sure you do your research, and they all address different individual needs of your skin. So practice safety as always. I know I'm pretty repetitive in that, but it is truly important. So if you like this video and you want to see more content like this, do send us likes, comment down below, and also subscribe to our channel. We're very new, so this will encourage us to push more contents later on. Meanwhile, stay safe, take care, and bye.